Hello friends and welcome to my easy offlane Dragon Knight guide. He is not broken or OP right now. In fact, he's quite standard, which is exactly why I picked him. I think if you are new to offlaning, either switching roles or a new player, maybe you're just farming role queue tokens and need to do just well enough, Dragon Knight is a very safe pick who always offers something every game, and maybe he's never broken, but he's never like terrible either. So I think he's just a very stable, safe pick, and that's why I want to talk about him. Depending on the matchup, you can take Breathe Fire or Dragon Tail at level 1. Ideally, you're against a melee hero, and you can take Dragon Tail, and the way you're going to use it is, 1, if they're very aggressive like Ursa and they start going on you, you're just going to stun them and walk away. If it's not that case, it's kind of like more standard laning. You are going to stun the enemy every time you want a ranged creep. So you go up to secure the enemy ranged creep, and they come up to try to deny you and try to harass you. You're going to stun them, kill the ranged creep, hit them once or twice, and then back away. And the stun lasts long enough that you get to do that. Or they're going to walk up to try to get your ranged creep, and as it gets close to dying, you're going to stun them, deny the creep in front of their face, and then hit them once or twice. It doesn't sound like a ton, but you're going to do this pretty much every wave, and that's going to slowly whittle them down as you get that free damage in, and it's also going to build up a level advantage for you. So that's kind of how you're going to get that advantage in the laning stage. But against ranged heroes, it's not very easy because Dragon Tail is a very short range stun unless you're in your ult, but you're level 1, so you don't have your ult. Breathe Fire is going to be better in those cases. That way you don't have to walk up to the enemy range creep to secure it. You can just use Breathe Fire. This is especially good if your 4 support does not have a way to secure the range creep for you. So, ranged matchups, consider Breathe Fire. Melee matchups, consider Dragon Tail. If you have a kill combo, you might also want to take Dragon Tail against ranged heroes, but it's just going to be a little harder. Oh, and if you go for First Blood, then yeah, you probably want Dragon Tail as well, because it's just a very long stun at level 1. I don't recommend Dragon's Blood level 1 because you're not going to get to use any mana, and it gives you a lot of regen, but then maybe it turns out it's a very passive lane, they're not harassing very much, and now you're just stuck with this passive that is, you're sitting at full health and it's not really doing anything for you. So I really recommend take Breathe Fire or Dragon Tail, you have more flexibility with those, but then at level 2, take Dragon Blood because you don't have the mana pool to really use 2 spells at once this early too often. So get a passive, it's going to make you tankier, it's going to help heal you up, and if you need to buy more tangos, you can, but hopefully you can get to level 2 Dragon Blood, or like level 2, get Dragon Blood, and that's going to sustain you through the laning stage. You can get a second point in Dragon Blood in very difficult lanes, against especially like ranged heroes who are harassing a lot, or if you're just not very confident in your off-laning, or specifically your laning stage, Dragon Blood helps to cover a lot of those weaknesses. Oops, take an extra harass. Oops, accidentally walked under tower once or twice, right? The extra armor and regen is going to be great for you, so you can do that. If you can get by without it though, go ahead and start maxing Breathe Fire first. Breathe Fire is your AoE nuke, so it's going to help you farm faster, either pushing in creep waves so you can get to the tower with your ultimate, start doing some damage there, or maybe you get to a jungle camp, maybe you stack it and you want to farm it. Breathe Fire is going to help you do that, and because you're farming faster, it's then going to help you get back to your other abilities. You can skip it for another point in Dragon Tail if you are building Meteor Hammer and you want that guaranteed chain combo, especially against very mobile enemy heroes. You might get like a second or third point in Dragon Tail, but I do think it feels nicer when you can get more points in Breathe Fire sooner because that increased farming speed helps you to come back to level up faster and then get those points in Dragon Tail. But you do have some flexibility here to like max one or the other, but Breathe Fire is going to be a lot more common, and Dragon Tail is going to be better if you're trying to be extremely active very early on, but you kind of need to blink for that. So that's kind of why you don't really need to max this by level 7. You can typically get Breathe Fire and then move into Dragon Tail, and then after that, you'll max out the final points in Dragon Blood. You're going to take your ult every chance you get. It's a very good ultimate ability, so 6, 12, and 18, go ahead and grab this. For talents, hold off on taking anything till level 15, and then skip straight to your level 2 talent. Depending on how the game's going, if you're dealing with a lot of mobile enemy heroes, and especially if you're the only stun in your team, you might want this extra 0.5 Dragon Tail stun. That is 3.5 seconds of stun every 10 seconds. So you may be the only stun on your team, but you have a really good one. So I like that talent in those kind of situations, but if you have enough stuns on your team, or maybe they're just not that mobile and it's like kind of okay to run them down without stuns, then the 400 health helps you to survive a lot. It's a lot of value with the extra armor from Dragon Blood, plus you're probably building a BKB, so you become very tanky, and this will just keep you alive so you can keep using that stun. After that, at level 16, go back for your 10 talent. If you want more carry potential, take that damage. If you need more utility, then this Breathe Fire damage reduction is pretty good. It already has 30% on it, so it goes up to 60% damage reduction, and this damage reduction applies to total damage. So it's not just whatever base damage they get from agility. If they're an agility hero, they could buy 6 Divine Rapiers, and you would reduce that damage by 60%. So if your team is doing enough damage and you don't really need to help fill in that right-click damage role, then this is a really good utility talent in my opinion. But if you just want like some basics, like I don't know what to do, let me just pick something, then I think this damage and this 400 health talent are pretty safe. Level 20, I think the attack range on Elder Dragon form is a lot better. You will typically be blinking onto the targets you want to fight, so you don't really need more cast range, or the damage is not really why you pick this ability. And if you need it for like safe high ground wave clear while you're defending, I guess you could take it, but that's also kind of what the shard is for. So I think this is more useful. And then at level 25, the AoE stun, I've already been saying the stun's amazing, so if you get a 400 AoE, I think that's a lot better. I think in the late game, 12 armor and regen, it's I don't know, it just does not feel very good compared to a 400 AoE stun. So I think these two talents are relatively non-negotiable. I go these pretty much every game I get to that point. For items, grab a Quelling Blade to make it easy on yourself. The Quelling Blade really helps with last hitting. Only works on securing last hits, not denies, but that's still very useful. So I recommend the Quelling Blade. I recommend grabbing a set of tangos. You can wait for the bounty runes to buy the tango. That's okay too. The rest of your items just fill out on stats, strength, and these like attribute points. Now, which ones you want to get, that depends on your build. So let's actually skip the starting items for now and go into the rest of the stuff. Right now, Meteor Hammer is pretty popular. It may not be in the future, and that's okay. There's another build you can do that's perfectly viable as well. But right now, Meteor Hammer is pretty good. It's going to cover all of your mana regen needs and all of that. And so what you'll probably do is just build some gauntlets and a couple iron branches, go straight for the Ring of Health, and once you have that, it's very hard to get kicked out of lane. You'll finish the Meteor Hammer, and then from there, you'll go into like Boots, Blink, the rest, blah, blah, blah. We'll get into that. If you aren't going Meteor Hammer, then you're going to get Power Treads first. Prior to the Power Treads, you can consider a Bracer or a Magic Wand. The Bracer, you might be wondering, many offlaners are moving to Wraithband, but Dragonite doesn't really need extra armor. In fact, the strength and HP regen have extra value on him because he has so much natural armor, so he can still go Bracer if he wants, and if you're really in a tough laning stage, the Bracer can help have those extra early stats to get you through it. Otherwise, you can skip the Bracer, honestly, go for the Power Treads and the Wand faster. And then after that, because you don't have the Meteor Hammer mana regen, you are going to struggle mana pool-wise. I recommend a Soul Ring. Now, if you're a new player and you're struggling with all these actives like Soul Ring and Tread Swapping, then maybe you could skip it, because if you're not going to use it well, then it's no point in buying it. But if you can like practice that, I do recommend it. The Soul Ring is pretty easy for Dragonite to use because he has so much natural HP regen, so this really helps to solve your mana issues. So now stepping back to the starting items, you can see why if you plan on building a Bracer, then let's go ahead and grab Gauntlets and a Circlet instead of this second Gauntlet, for example. And you can build these two into the Bracer right away. If you know you're not going to build a Bracer, you can get 2 Gauntlets. They're very efficient, and you can hang on to them later for the Soul Ring. If you plan on getting Meteor Hammer, totally okay. You can still just sell these Gauntlets later on without doing anything to them. They're just very efficient starting items, and that's fine. You can eat these Iron Branches if you need to. Otherwise, I do recommend a Wand to increase your available mana for your spells and team fights. I think that's really useful. But if you just need to get through the laning stage right, it's fine to eat the tangos or eat the Iron Branch with the tango for the extra regen when you need it, and then just buy another Iron Branch. It's 50 gold. It's not a huge deal. But yeah, so depending if you're getting the Meteor Hammer or whatever starting items, typically what you're looking at is like Meteor, Boots, Blink, or like Power Treads, Soul Ring, Blink. And after the Blink, Shard is pretty nice. If you urgently need a BKB, you can rush it, but if you can get the Shard first, it helps a lot with your farming speed, which will then help you get to the BKB sooner, plus you get more like another spell to use in team fights and all of that. So if you can get the Shard first, I think that's really good. Move into the BKB, This is very standard. This like Power Treads, Blink, BKB, plus or minus this Meteor Hammer and or Shard. From there, it just kind of depends on what the game needs. The Aghanims for the extra ultimate level and the extra magic resist and free pathing is really cool. In very high magic damage games, that's pretty useful. AC is a very safe bet, even more armor and attack speed now boosted to your team. Halberd against some like right clickers. You are an offlaner, so you can buy like things like Lotus if your team needs it. The Halberd. Octarine is actually a pretty cool build-up, especially if you want like Meteor Hammer. You can turn your brown boots into arcane boots, get this Octarine core. It's going to lower your stun combo time even shorter and give you more mana to keep spamming it out. Plus the Shard, you can like cast it more often. So the Octarine build is pretty cool, especially if you just need to provide like more stuns. You can get a Midas earlier on in the game, like Power Treads Midas for more farm speed if you're trying to assume a more carry role type of offlaner. But I don't fully recommend that if you're like new to this, but you will see some people build it, so I wanted to mention it. Silver Edge can be cool. Dragonite really likes attack speed, and the crit actually applies on the splash. So like if you, your level 2 ult, we didn't talk too much about it, but your level 2 ult splash damages. So if you crit on the main target, that crit damage actually applies to all the other units. But on hit effects, things like Maelstrom won't work. So that's why like straight up damage and attack speed are really good on Dragonite, so that he can get better value out of the splash, and why crit is also good, but you won't really see him building things like Diffusal or like Deso because you don't really share those on hit effects. A couple things you may want to know about your abilities. Like I said earlier, Breathe Fire affects total damage, so someone who has like 4 Divine Rapiers will be still affected by Breathe Fire and bring this total damage down. So it's very good against right-click carries, whether they are stat-based or just like damage item-based. Breathe Fire, you may have just noticed there, also goes further than the cast range. So this is especially important for range creep securing. You don't need to walk too close to the range creep. You can actually hit it from quite far away. When you're in Dragon form, Dragon Tail becomes a ranged ability, so you can cast it from further. But that means it can also be disjointed by someone with Manta or BKB, things like that. So it's now a dodgeable ability, whereas when it's melee, it is instant. So if you blink stun, there's very little they can do unless they react as soon as they see you, but that's tough. Technically, if you blink on top of the target and then Dragon Tail, it is still very, very quick. And so if you need an instant stun, this is still fast. Depending on the level of your ultimate, you gain extra effects with your ult. So at level 1, it's Corrosive Breath. At level 2, it's Corrosive Breath plus Splash, and then so forth for level 3. I don't need to read through everything. You can do that yourself. But something you do want to know is that your Aghanims adds an extra level to your ultimate. That means you do not get the magic resistance and free pathing unless you are already level 18 with 3 points in Elder Dragon form. So if I have an Aghanims now and I use this ult, I'm actually just at level 2 ultimate now. And that means I have the Splash Attack and Corrosive Breath, but I don't actually have the Frost Breath, and I don't have that free pathing or that extra magic resist. So if I tried to go over this cliff right now, my hero would still have to walk around it. So the Aghanims can still be worth it if you're buying it early, like between level 2 ult and level 3 ult, but definitely like a first item rush doesn't really make sense. Just level up naturally, and then when you do want to get to that Black Dragon form, then you like build the Aghanims. Once you do get Scepter, you get the Black Dragon form, and you can now free flow move, and you have the extra magic resist. Interestingly, if you drop the Aghanims, you lose the extra levels in Corrosive Breath, so you don't do 30 DPS, you do 20, and you don't get that 60% slow and 60 attack speed slow. It goes back down to 40%. However, you do keep 100% splash damage, and you can still move up and down cliffs along with keeping that extra magic resist. Fireball has a 0.2 cast time, so it's possible to stun, Fireball, and then Meteor Hammer while still maintaining the chain stun. It's a little easier if you're in your ult form and you get the cast range, because then you have like a little extra time to work with, although factor in they might still dodge it, like we said earlier. You can't shift Q this because there's backswing on these abilities, so you just have to manually cast everything, and even if they have like BKB, I didn't do it fast enough. Even if they have BKB, first try, you can chain stun. But like you saw, it's not easy. You have to press it very quickly. Final 2 pieces of advice. Don't be afraid to use your ult to farm. The level 1 ult, the very first one you get, Hopefully you're using that to take a tower or two, the enemy safe lane tower and maybe the enemy mid lane tower. If it's the first 2 ults, that's okay. But in the downtime, especially as you farm up, moving towards that blink, that BKB, those really big item timings that you want to get before you really get involved with your team, the ultimate helps you farm faster because it's giving you attack range and extra move speed to move between the camps faster. It gives you extra damage. So feel free to pop the ult, farm it up. I know it feels weird, but if you think about it, it's a 60-second duration so long as you don't die. So if a fight does break out in that time, you have it, which is fine. And then in between, it's only a 40-second downtime, which really isn't that much. Just ask your team, like, please don't fight. I don't have my ult yet. Just wait for it, right? It may feel weird, but try it out a couple times. You'll notice it's helping you hit your item timings faster, which then makes you stronger in the team fights you do join, rather than try to like hold your ultimate forever, farm slower, and then you like do join a fight, but you don't have the items you want. That's going to feel worse. And I hinted at it, but the blink and the BKB timings are pretty important. BKB, I'm sure you know, but the blink, the instant stun is so good, but it is not instant. If you have to slowly walk up to people and they see you coming, it's just not going to feel good. So farm up, get your blink, and then you can start thinking about being active, but still working on your farm because these other items are going to help you out as well. But don't try to be too active. Force towers, go into a lane, like shove it in, right? You're starting the off lane, shove the enemy safe lane in, take that tower, and then when you're not doing anything, don't like go run around the map trying to like find kills. Just go to the jungle, farm up, push the lane in, keep it on the enemy's half of the map. You can move to that mid tower, pressure that one as well, but hit your item timings, especially this blink, and then you can blink instant stun people and your power just shoots straight through the roof. And if you're an awful offlaner like myself, as soon as you have to blink, no matter how badly you're doing, you just find someone who's doing well on your team and you go, I will go blink stun that guy so they can't BKB, and you walk up, you follow up stun, or you just kill them in that time, and that's how you're going to contribute. And as you get better at the off lane and better at DK, you know, you can do a bit of damage yourself and scale up and all that. But to begin with, you really want this blink timing because it just helps you do everything else just a lot easier. If you want to learn more about Dragon Knight offlane, keep an eye out for a follow-up video where I will be talking over one of the games I played and explaining what I'm doing and pointing out things I'm doing wrong so that you guys can learn from it. And if you don't need that, then that's totally fine too. Thank you for watching this. I hope you found it helpful, and I'll see you in another video.